morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Thursday, June 12th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Thursday, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame. Tremendous reversal from those April lows, a big time continuation to the upside since that period of time, and we are now in the final stages here of this rally, perhaps as the end of the road, maybe coming into this point right here, which is around 6,200. If we can get into this zone right there, that's an all-time high for the ES. It's a massive recovery from those April lows. And is that going to be a moment here where we see some sort of reaction that brings us back into the range below? Or can this market push through 6,200 and open up new market structure above, perhaps into 6,400 or beyond? So right now, again, big time level coming into view right now. Previous quarter's high, all-time high. This market's still working toward that level. We've gotten a little bit compressed in here, very low volatility price action, but it's kind of a melt-up type phase, and we could continue to see that phase play out until we reach that high. Once we reach that high, we could see a tremendous reaction, one that gets us back to 5,700, maybe even back a little bit lower. How deep of a pullback do we get? The last time around when we were at that level was, of course, in Q1, and we got a quick pullback to 5,500. That was the initial push right there. Do we see something like that again? Or again, how does this play out with regards to expansion down the road? So keeping an eye on those things right now. From an intraday perspective today, keep an eye on the previous session's low. A recovery of the previous session's low opens up a short-term rotation back up towards 60.30, maybe even a bit beyond that level. But right now, range bound on a 4-day range basis, building energy, Fed on deck for next week. Looking at the NQ, here's the NQ, similar price action, testing a rising 8-period PIMA, still bullish overall, but the volatility has clearly dropped in this zone here, still working our way quietly higher toward the previous quarter's highs and the all-time highs, which are all kind of right in the same zone here, almost there. I mean, this blue line, previous quarter's high right there, and in that part of the profile will be your all-time high as well. So we're almost in that zone. We're still working for that target to finish out this move. Once we get to that area, of course, that's when we could begin to see some sort of reaction that again could bring us back down. Maybe it's back toward value down here. That's 20,427. 200-day moving average 20,580. Where is it going to be? And that's if we do get a failure here. Of course, any expansion could be tremendous, but that's a lower odds scenario given the amount of movement we've seen to get to that point, meaning massive sell-off, massive correction and recovery. After all of that movement, very difficult to then get a further expansion phase beyond it. That's why once we get to this edge, we either get some sort of holding pattern or perhaps see a little bit of a pullback to create a holding pattern as this market digests the recent price action. Right now, keep an eye on the previous session's low. To recover that previous session's low, you're opening up a little bit of upside here, which could bring you back toward the 21,880 zone, maybe even beyond that zone up above. But range bound over the last couple of few days here with an upward bias still intact. Looking at crude oil, crude with a big time breakout in the previous session, finally. One of the things we've been talking about here for a little while was an expansion phase through 64. An expansion phase through 64. When we developed that day, I mentioned that day's high would be used as the expansion day down the road. We finally got it right there. That was the day. That was last Friday. Last Friday, expansion through the 64s. I did mention it wasn't the most emphatic transition day, but it was just good enough to suggest an early pullback as a buying opportunity the next day, and a swing continuation into our target zone here. That's our short-term swing target zone between 67 and 68.5. That's between yearly VWAP and the 200-day. But of course, as you know, I've mentioned before that beyond 64 opens up 7150 to 73. So that's the ultimate short-term target zone here on a recovery of 64. If we pull back here, it's a buying opportunity for a lift into that area. So still looking for a continuation up on a swing basis today, seeing a little bit of a dark cloud cover pattern, a fade back in. Want to hold the previous session's midpoint on a daily closing basis today, but on the way up, the next pullback could be a buying opportunity for a continuation toward that 71.50 to 73 zone. Looking at gold futures, this one's up big right now, up 1.9%, trading over 3,400 right now. We talked about 3,400 to 3,450 being an area of resistance to really respect right now. Got to respect that zone as a bull. We had that as a day one buying opportunity for a push into 3,400 to 3,450, but then that was a profit taking zone for us here, with the potential here to see either a rotation back into the range below, or at some point build enough energy to push through 3,450 and open up the upside. What's it going to be? And profit taking was a good opportunity there in that zone. It hasn't been able to get beyond it, but we are still maintaining a modest slight upward bias here. We have kind of an ascending wedge developing. Can we get a breakout now? If this thing can break through 3,450 with a transition day, we are about to see a major expansion phase to the upside. This whole compression right here, that energy gets released. That's in a month and a half, 2 months of energy. You could be looking at tremendous strength through 3,450. So if there's a breakout through 3,450 in a transition day out of this pattern, big time continuation could occur. A rejection and failure in here, like we've seen before, and you're staying in the range and continuing to build out this market structure until proven otherwise. Very strong right now in the short term and approaching 3,450 for a big time test. Looking at the YM. The YM here still range bound. Look at this compression here. That compression has taken place over the last month. If we count up the days here inside this compression, say from here over, you're right at around 20, 21. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So you're at 23 days. 21 would be a monthly average for the most part. So you've got a whole month's worth of compression here. That means you have a whole month's worth of expansion. When you have a month's worth of expansion, a month's worth of energy can come out in 2 weeks. So once we do get expansion from this range, it could be an aggressive first couple of weeks out of the range. Which way is it going to be? Are we going to finish this thing out into the previous quarter's highs? That's what we've been looking for. Although the YM has lagged getting to that area compared to the NQ and the ES. But it has had a tremendous recovery from the lows nonetheless. That 43 is still tremendous resistance. Through 43, you open up 45. Failure at 43, you open up 41. Which one's it going to be? So key level right now, 43,000 on a swing basis. Short term, continue to keep an eye on the previous session's low for intraday purposes. Looking at Bitcoin, this one's down 1.5% at the moment. Still hanging around the 110,000 level, but it's backing off that level at the moment. You do have a key or a clear range rather from 100K up to about 112.5 or so, and that range right there would suggest a 125% or 125K target. So 125K could be the upside target based off of this range here. We could see further development within that range for a little while to build that energy, and then an upside continuation could be at hand. Even if we were to drop below 100K, that could be a trap here for a rotation back up. So this market's sitting in a good spot right now, but we're also sitting at an area of resistance that has had tremendous reversals in the past. Do we see a similar outcome again? How deep do we go? Do we get a pullback as deep as 90K up ahead? So again, that 112.5 to 115, very, very important for Bitcoin in the near term. Looking at ETH, this one's down 2.5% right now. This one's also had a pretty good move recently. This pullback here was a great opportunity for a rotation into 2800, but yesterday right here we wondered out loud here if this was developing into kind of an expanding range. You have the upper boundary that looks like this, the lower boundary kind of like that. Does that lead to a rotation back into this zone and maybe another attempt back up? Can we push through 2800 right away and open up some upper market structure into 3400? So how bullish is this thing going to get right now? 2800 remains the key level to watch. Through 2800, you really open up some upside. Failure there, and you could rotate back to 2400 without blinking and just kind of stay in the range, building that energy. So still looking good for Ethereum here, but really need through 2800 to really open up the next 600 points up above. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.